This Vampirella I Love New York Comic Con variant took the spotlight last month, but what's its status 1 month later? And are we revisiting the bad girls era in comics, or this is just a passing trend? And what about this indie hit from Garth Ennis? Has it crossed the line into long-term success, or is it already fading away? Find out on this week's 30, 60, 90. This is where we look back at 1 month ago, 2 months ago, and 3 months ago. Where we're going to go based off of the different weeks. We're going to have two books for 60. However, they're the same book, so I don't have to do that much work for it. We're going to start off with the first book that came out about 30 days ago. And this book was super hot when it came out. It was a bit of a sleeper hit because everybody was looking at other books. But this book, Vampirella 672, this is the Will Jack 2024 New York Comic Con Comic Mint KRS Virgin comic. This came out in at New York Comic Con. I was able to see it, but I did not purchase it. And I'm a little upset I did it because this book was hot. And during the time it was hot, it had a top weekly sale of over $200 in a near mint, to be completely honest. And it had at that time 41 sales was going on with a growth of 78%. The most common raw was going for about $170 near mint, while slabs were actually being sold for $169 at a 9.8. That's what this book was trending. Obviously, as you can see by the cover, it is a sexy cover, to say the least. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to actually go into cover price. We're going to take a look at how this book has performed since that time frame. So here we are in cover price right now, and I'm going to look at my screen over here. And as you can see, the price of the book is generally around the same price right now, where a raw near mint sold for $190. So that's just the most recent figure that happened 2 days ago, and it sold at 190. So the book still has that height attached to it 30 days later. The near mint is going for about $180. So the person that paid for it paid a little bit more. The slabs are going for about the same price. So you might as well buy a slab than buy the comic book raw because the slab is costing roughly about the same price. Let's go ahead and take a look at the sales view info. Right. And there we go. We got all this information here. So you could see by this that during the time, 122 books have been recorded as sales. The highest known value of the book was back in October for $260. You can see that the book's actual price has dropped since its height, but it's still at a pretty high value. It's only been about a month since Comic Con, believe it or not. It's crazy thinking about it. It feels like it was a while ago now. As far as raw copies go, 118 was sold and only 4 was recorded. I'm sure there's a lot more out there because this is coming from retailers. If we look at the sales data of the raw comics, we could take this is how we'll look at it from this perspective. You could see some information, some averages here with near mint and near mint plus. I wouldn't take too much from this. Instead, I would take a look at the raw sales figures. A lot of sales were happening back in October. I know it might be a little too small. In October was the big sales. However, when it comes to the near mint 9 to 9.4, there were some sales in November. So this book has actually dropped its momentum since then. You can see a lot of the sales were occurring in October as opposed to November. So the majority of it, and if I start from right here, this is all October's figures. It has died down since then, but it's still a really sought after hot book. It's the Will Jack effect. It's really what's in the cover, to say the least, right? That's why this book is so hot. Let's go back here and take a look at the book that was hot 2 months ago. And back in September 3rd, as well as the following week, because there was an extra week in September, Mark Spears Monsters #1, the Bridezilla variant cover E was the hottest book in the market. It was going for near mint values of $30 as well as a high 150 near mint plus. However, weekly units were about 42.39. So if you notice what I want to show you here, this $30 near mint was for week 4. This 150 was week 5. So in a matter of a week, this book went from $30 to $150. It had an immediate growth, and then the following week it dropped down to about 111%. But the most common raw was $20 at week 4, and in week 5 it was $75. At the time of its arrival, there were no slabs for this book. This book was sold off the shelf, so there wasn't those retailer exclusives or anything like that. This book was super hot during its time. The momentum of Mark Spears' Monsters is still hot today. So we'll take a look at that in cover price. This book is now going for about $125. So it dropped, but it's still pretty much in the lower 100, 125 for a near mint value. However, the slabs, which finally have been arriving, a slab sold for $430. That's the most common slab purchase. We'll take a look at how many slabs were actually sold during this time, where most common raw is about $148. So the last sell was actually less than what the average is. So let's take a look at the sales info for this book. If we look at the raw sales, most of them are near mint, of course, and they recorded a total of 179 raw sales. Most of them are within the near mint value. There are some fines, and we're still seeing sales in November. As you can see right there, you have about 15 sales in November for that. Was no near mint sales going on here, nor very fine. If you look at the slabs, I'm sure there was a very small amount of slabs sold in total of one recorded slab. And that recorded slab already went for $430. Way overpriced in my point of view. But this Mark Sears Monster series has been hot. All the books have been selling out almost immediately. Everybody's getting these books. There's a lot of different variants that are out there. There's a variant that you might like. Also, the monsters, Halloween variant's a pretty hot one that people seem to like a lot. One that I haven't seen has been the third printing Nightmare on Elm Street homage, and that one. That's kind of cool, being a Nightmare on Elm Street fan myself. Be on the lookout for the Trick or Treat era. This one, I have to say, was weird, because what's going on with this particular book is that there's an era, and the era on this book is found right here. So there's a beauty mark. The era is, I don't know if it's worth it, but people have been spending $35. The last sold was $35 for an era. I don't think the era is worth it, to tell you the truth, because it's just a dot. Guys, it's just a dot. It's not a big deal. It's not that's super exciting. Let's go back to our book and take a look at our last book in this list. And no, it's not a Mark Spears. It is actually another indie book. So this whole 30, 60, 90 has been dominated by indie titles. And this is coming from Avatar Press. Remember them? And this book is Cross Issue Zero. This book came out back in 2008, made the list on August 26, week 4, and it had a top weekly sales of $60 near mint. During that time, 11 units were sold. It had a growth of 44%. Raw copies, very fine, most common with $33. A 9.8 most common was $375. This book was extremely hot because it was optioned during its time. So people went crazy picking them up. So about 44% of the individuals went crazy picking it up. I personally am not a fan of these covers. I don't think they're exciting. They feel very indie. but it is Garth Ennis, and Garth Ennis, especially back in 2008, was extremely popular. He's still pretty popular today with the boys. Let's go ahead and take a look at where this book is today. And you might be surprised because remember, the most common slab goes for about 375. So now it's a little different. Now let's take a look at what a most common slab looks like. So here it is in cover price. And a last sold slab went for $192. So we see there was a dip. The most common slab is $230. And the most common raws are about $33. I still think that's too high, in my opinion. I don't think the book is all around that hot. I don't think it's that great. Um, let's take a look at the series info so we can see a little bit more what's been happening with this book with the sales. There's about 90 recorded sales. That means the book actually has not performed that well with 90 sales. Um, Last near mint was back in August, September. It just hasn't performed. You had no grays that happened back in October when it comes to the raws. As far as the slabs go of this book, the last recorded slab was in November, but then before was one sale in November. You see two sales actually in November, and then you see that it has most of the sales figures that are going on there. So the book has not performed well since its 90-day hype. I think the next time you'll see this book on this list will eventually be when there is some kind of production for this. I don't think this book has longevity. I don't believe this book is extremely exciting, to be completely honest with you. So if you see it and you get it at a good price, have fun with it. It is Garth Ennis. I personally enjoy Garth Ennis' work. This is not one of them, unfortunately. So there you have it. That's Cross, and that is your 30, 60, 90. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more comic content. Check out these other videos for even more insight, and I'll see you at the next one. Excelsior.